everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Black Tea. This is season 2 of the series all about Black women in advertising, presented by Muse by Cleo. I'm your host, Michelle Lawrence, and I'm super glad to be here today with Jada Harris. Hey, Jada.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's a rainy day in New York, but pretty good.
You know what? We're going to make it work. Please tell the people what you do and where you're based.
Cool. Yep, I'm Jada Harris. I am a social strategist at Laundry Service, and I am based in New York. Just moved up here, so excited to start 2022 off in the greatest city of the United States.
So, how did you find your way into advertising?
Good question. I actually have a pretty untraditional track, I guess. So I was in marketing. I was a marketing coordinator before I started at Warner & Thompson in Atlanta. And I had a boss, and she ended up leaving that. I was a nonprofit that I was working at, and she ended up leaving there because she was there for like 5 years. She's like, I'm going to advertising. I want to be an account. And so I always knew I wanted to go into advertising. I just didn't know where to start. I knew I was curious, and like I had all these questions in my head and I wanted to get them answered. But I didn't know that that was strategy at the time. So I was like, whatever, I'll just go follow my old boss into advertising. So I went in as an account executive, which was a huge like change or shift to me, because it was a lot of like client management, and I hadn't necessarily done that before.
Not coming from a nonprofit, yeah.
Yes, totally different. And she let me know it was going to be like a change, but like I'd be able to overcome it. So I did that for about a year, and then I networked my way into strategy. I just networked my way into strategy. I was curious. I had all the skills I felt like, and then I talked to the director of strategy at Warner & Thompson Atlanta, and I was like, yo, I need to be here. This is what I want to do. I like research. Let's make this happen. So I shadowed a little bit, and then they just transferred me over. So that's how I made it.
Okay. Networking at work is something I don't often think about doing, like networking your way into the department that you want to be in. That's drive, girl. I love it. So you said you always knew you wanted to be in advertising. How? When did you find out that that was like a career path that was out there? What inspired you in the first place to get into advertising?
So it's actually funny. So maybe I shouldn't have said I always knew I wanted to go into advertising, because that's a little bit of a fib. I did TV production in high school, and then I went to UCF and did like their radio TV program, graduated in like their management track. And then I had a friend, there's a guy from UCF that created Shark Tank, the show. Okay. So he always brings out like interns every summer. And so my friend ended up getting in that program. I went to LA. I saw how she was living. She was like, yeah, I worked for like 6 months, and the other like 6 to 8 months I don't work, but I make so much money in those 6 months that like it covers everything. And I'm like, yeah, that's not the life I want to live. So yes, I redirected a little bit because I was like, I need some stability. I feel like I always need like a constant paycheck. So then I started doing like social freelancing and things like that. And I was like, what job can I get that actually allows me to do what I like to do? And then I just ran across advertising in like 2018.
I know that at Laundry Service, we work in a particularly diverse group. But I'm wondering if that has always been your experience in advertising. How did you find yourself fitting in, standing out, managing with the environment that you have been working in so far?
That's also a really good question. So my experience is a little bit different. So Laundry Service is I don't say a huge learning curve, but it was definitely like a culture shock when it came to agency life. So at Warner & Thompson, I worked on the Marine Corps account, which is very structured.
Yeah.
Because they're Marines, and then not like the account people and like the people on the team at the agency like operate like they're Marines, but like everything is just so structured. So I basically went from somewhere like Warner & Thompson, where it was like, okay, this is what you do, like X, Y, and Z, like A to Z, like this is it. And then Laundry Service was a little bit of a turnaround. Communication styles were different as well. So being able to like actually communicate with account at laundry service and say like, hey, like I'm going to be out or something like that. That was a huge learning curve for me too. Because I would typically just at Wonderman Thompson, I would just tell my boss like, hey, I'm not going to be here from like 5 to 6. I'll be back. And that was the only person I had to like communicate with. And then it would get shared throughout. So like that was a huge learning curve as well. But one thing I do love about laundry service is that it is so diverse. At Wonderman Thompson, I felt like I was the only Black girl in the room. There was another Black girl on the team, but we worked on like different parts of the business. So like in the room, like I literally would be the only person for like national campaigns and things. So it was just really weird. Because they would like ask questions and I'm like, you literally cannot say that. Like, that's not right. Like, you can't say that. And at laundry service, someone else in the room is gonna say, you can't say that. So it's nice. It's a nice change, I guess you could say.
Shared burden. We have lots of people who would tell you what you can't say.
Yeah.
That's right. So what has been the challenge that you have dealt with outside of feeling like the only one in the advertising industry because you are a Black woman? And how did you manage it? And if you could go back, would you manage it a different way?
So let me just say, I'm a very direct and honest person. Like I'm someone that I need to get to the bottom of it. Like at the end of the day, like my job is to be presented with the problem and me to solve that problem with research or, you know, just prior experience, whatever it is. So I'm very direct when it comes to what's the problem? Like, what are you really asking for? Like, why are you beating around the bush? So when I started this new position, not that I was rude or I came off as condescending. It was just a matter of like, what are you saying? Like you said everything except the actual problem. And so those type of conversations kind of led me down a she's unprofessional road.
That label
Yes.
fell upon you because of your communication style.
Yes. And so not that it stuck. I don't think that it stuck with me throughout my time, but on that particular account, it was definitely like apparent that like Jada's kind of like a problem to work with. So that was interesting. And the way I overcame it was basically like talking to my manager and then like my bigger managers or bosses and things like that. And then really just being like, okay, like, tell me what happened. Let me listen to you really quickly so I can get to the bottom of it. This is not going to be like any like disciplinary type of action or anything like that, but really want you to like learn from this mistake. So just the biggest takeaway is that like sometimes I just need to be a filter, or I need to specifically ask people about how they communicate or how they like to communicate, versus just straight up blurting it out. Like, what are you asking me for? I guess. So that's something that I've learned from and still learning from. So I guess I would say like communication is a big one I'm still learning.
Can I offer you some advice that you did not ask for?
Yes, of course.
It is, I would just say that's a spectrum, right? And it often is also like a power dynamic thing depending on where you are in your career, or influenced by, I should say, where you are in your career, and also the makeup of your internal team and your client team. And, you know, some of it is definitely there's things that we can do to make sure that, you know, we're not being rude and we're not being unprofessional. But there are also certain things that are not rude and unprofessional, but that are direct and that are true and that are down to earth. But when it comes out of a vessel that looks like us, there is a layer of bias that exists in the world. And sometimes, no matter how professional you are, people are going to be like, did she make a face at me? Did she say this thing? It was not what she said. It was like how she said it. You know, I feel like she's always, girl, my advice is to continue to have those conversations with the people that support you at work, continue to have these conversations with other Black women, whether you work with them or not. And have those honest looks back at the situation. Because, you know, maybe there's something for you to learn, but maybe there's something different for you to learn that isn't, oh, I should hold back or I should filter myself more. Maybe the lesson is that sometimes people are going to take things away a certain way. You know, how do I then go back to that situation, not let it scare me or deter me, but make sure that I'm being heard clearly and that I can ask the follow-up questions that will refocus the attention back on the work and not on what it is that I look like and what I, you know, my tone of voice. So I would say it comes with practice. Unfortunately, you're going to get a lot of practice in this area as your career progresses. I will say it's just like the life we live. But definitely lean on your support system of people from within the culture that can understand, you know, bias. And also making sure that, you know, you have your team of support in your managers that can, you know, advocate for you in those instances, and make sure that, you know, that you're not being treated unfairly as well. So there's a balance. I wouldn't say go all the way to like, let me write down everything I'm going to say before I say it, or let me filter, let me walk on eggshells. You know, remember that you were hired for that skill set because you want to get to the root of the problem, because you're good at figuring that out and bringing your thought provokingness to strategy. Don't lose that. Don't lose that because you're worried about how some folks are going to take it. And they'll be all right. They will. So
you're right.
I'm what I'm learning as my career goes on is like what I wish that I would have had people say to me at this stage in my career, because I have been there. And I didn't always work with other Black women and Black people who could tell me, you know, that I wasn't crazy and that it wasn't me necessarily. So I've dealt with a lot of, you know, you're a little aggressive, the client's a little afraid of you, or this, and that. And it's like, I don't have fangs. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just showing up and trying to fix the problem like everybody else. So that's a long-winded way of me saying, continue to bring your whole self to the problems, because that's, you know, you are who is going to fix them. You know, you're you, and you is needed on the work. So don't lose that.
Okay. I love that. Now I'm going to keep that in the front of my mind as I continue out throughout my career.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that like you have to be like rolling your neck and like snapping your fingers or whatever, like,
right.
But it's just like, you also don't need to be mincing words. If something needs to be said, say it. All right, that's enough of that. I want to know a little bit about you from a bragging standpoint, if you will. What is a career goal that you have set for yourself and achieved? I mean, you've already told me one, which is that you wanted to be in strategy and you just made that shit happen with what was in front of you. Is there another thing that you were like, oh, I really want to do this, and now it's like, I did it?
That's no. Maybe there are some smaller wins that I've done. Like, okay, I have a small win, I guess, within my career. I know that we went to lunch one time and I was telling you, like, I have like a fear of like presenting, like I hate it. It's not my favorite thing to do. As like a strategist, the work is mostly like mine, and I'm really the only person that understands it. Or can explain it or present it. So last year, we had this huge like workshop deck that we needed to do for the client. And I was super nervous, but I did the presentation and it turned out fine. I don't think there was too much feedback on it. And now we're developing like a social playbook out of it. That's a small win. I think that my biggest accomplishment—
Don't you minimize that. Okay. You wanted to do a presentation and get better at that. And you did a huge one. I know the presentation that you're talking about, and it was like a BFD, as the president would say. So that was a big deal. And you did it. So yeah, that is a goal. And I think skills are one of those things that like you're always going to be improving at and getting more practice under your belt, but that's a huge feat, for presentation skills. But yeah, were you going to say another one?
I think the only one, it doesn't necessarily involve me too much, but first of all, I love that you do this podcast. And I have this like huge thing for like giving back to like other Black women, specifically girls my age, I guess you can say. So like from a career perspective, like I'm just always telling my friends, like, ask for more money or ask specific questions about the job, or, say that you want to transfer into something else. And I don't know, like I talk to my friends and like, they sometimes take the advice, sometimes they don't, which is totally fine. But I have a friend who's like currently doing that at Translation, and I think she's doing great. And so that's an accomplishment for me, because I'm just like, you always had it in you. You just needed some extra support. So my support, other people and Black women, is always going to be an accomplishment to me. So yeah.
I love that. And I'm going to flip it around on you, because it was an episode from last season. I think it was episode 9 with Radiate. And she said, sometimes I hear myself talking to other women, people I'm mentoring, or just people that I'm supporting, my friends, whatever. And when I'm giving them encouragement, when I'm saying what it is that I need to say to them, sometimes I'm like, oh, I should talk to myself this way. I should really gas myself up the way that I gas up my friends. So I would encourage you to do that. Talk your shit. You have much to be proud of, especially, what is this? You're like a couple 2-3 years into your career at this point. There's so much that's still yet to come for you. And I think it's amazing what you've been able to make happen for yourself so far. And I can't wait to see what you manifest next.
Yes, I'm very excited.
Okay, I have a question. Career FOMO. Is there a job outside of advertising that you would love to do if you could just magically be qualified for it, magically be trained for it, no training needed, you can just pop right into that job and know how to do it? What would it be?
I don't know if there's an actual like title for it. Like there is a title for it. I just don't know what it is. Okay. But I would love to just be a researcher of like social behavior. So that's very specific, but I'm also just, this podcast is not dropping until March. I'm applying for grad school. Okay. So I'm making steps to that researcher. But if I can magically do it today, I would definitely be like a market researcher.
I mean, that's not that different, is it?
I would be doing like I would be conducting research, like focus groups and like surveys and stuff like that. But I wouldn't be implementing anything. Like I would be removing like the strategy part of it and just be giving y'all the information.
Okay, got it. So you a nerd. You want to be in the data.
Yes, like, I am a nerd.
Don't want to emerge from it. Just leave me with the numbers and the qualitative information.
Yes.
I love that. You know, advertising research was my least favorite class. I went to grad school for advertising, and I like, it brought me to tears. I am not a data person. So I'm glad that people like you are out there, because we need you. One last question. Are there any super Black products or Black-owned products that you are loving right now that you might want to shout out?
There's a brand that I've been eyeing. I'm just really frugal, I guess you can say. I don't want to say cheap, but I'm really frugal. And I don't even know if I pronounce it correctly, but it's a clothing brand. It's called Hanifa. Okay. Some really good clothing items. They're like super high quality, very elegant. And like, that's like what I am aspiring to be with my fashion. And I love her. So not a product, but a clothing brand. And I'm obsessed with her.
Awesome. Well, Jada, I want to thank you so much for coming on Black Tea. I love hearing your story. I love seeing your journey so far. I can't wait to see what you do next and what you continue to grow into, and how you continue to dig into the numbers until there's no one else around and you're just underground with the numbers in your perfect little tunnel of research. That's what I want for you. If that's what you want for you, if you like it, I love it.
Yeah, I'm literally gonna put in my bio, Michelle Lawrence called me a nerd, so here I am.
All right, I don't know. Don't put me in there. I don't want to be in there. But thank you so much for coming on. And to everybody out there, thank you so much for watching this episode of Black Tea. Please watch all of our other episodes if you haven't yet at musebycleo.com/Black Tea. And make sure you're following us on Instagram at @SipBlackTea. That's just a no-brainer. Come on, y'all. And we will see y'all next time. Bye.